Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the 5 greatest Bel Canto Sopranos. And I mean, Donizetti, Bellini, Schoenberg. No, I'm just kidding. Donizetti, Bellini, Rossini, early Verdi, that crew from that period. It also includes, the French school of that day, basically, and all kinds of other things. I mean, that technically would not be the Bel Canto school, but they were all part of that school of singing. And oh my, could they sing? Dear me, absolutely fabulously. And, these names are going to be very familiar to those of you who are opera people. But to those of you who are not opera people, it's good to know. It's good to know who to look out for, because these are extraordinary sopranos who were able to take, well, Bel Canto, let me just put it this way. Bel Canto, of course, means beautiful singing. And the idea in the Bel Canto, or the prejudice against the Bel Canto school, is that it was just sort of this collection of stuff for canary fanciers, for these twittery sopranos who could reach these like insane high notes and whip off thickets of really fast virtuosic notes, all at once, and they were kind of stupid, and the plots were all silly. I mean, opera plots are always silly. It doesn't matter what they are. And so the music was not to be taken seriously as a result of that. But these are singers who took the music seriously and made sure that we would take it seriously, because at the end of the day, however you get there, whatever style you're writing in and whatever vocalism you require, what you are looking for in opera, any kind of drama, but in opera sort of as a special case, is emotional truth. That is, no matter how stupid the situation, no matter how crazy it is that the soprano is dying at the top of her lungs of tuberculosis, as Anna Russell would say, dying at the top of your lungs of TB. Yeah, exactly. The fact is, it has to be emotionally true. You have to believe it and feel it while it's happening. And these composers were really good at doing that. Donizetti, Bellini. I mean, I was one of the naysayers growing up because I wasn't an opera person. I really wasn't. And, growing up, I listened to an opera here or there. I went to the Met. I saw Aida. I thought it was cool. It had thousands of screaming people and, But and a little Wagner here and there, and I stayed awake, and I thought I was really I'd really arrived as a music lover. The truth of the matter is that I was not willing to admit that this music could be emotionally true. But when the melodies are that beautiful and the singing is that gorgeous, of course it can. Of course it gets the job done. It just doesn't do it in the way that you might find optimally believable. But hey, look at the bright side. Compared to Baroque opera seria, Bel Canto singing is absolutely realistic. I mean, the most realistic. Opera itself is a stylized medium, and you either accept the conventions and learn to love them, or go listen to something else. It's that simple. So these are the sopranos who really gave us the emotional truth at the core of these operas. I think that's the best way to say it. And number one on the list has to be Maria Callas, because she did it with a voice that was weird. Even people who love her say her voice was weird. It was a strange voice. It was not always the most beautiful voice. But people say, well, maybe her voice was going to tanking at that on the night, but it was still emotionally true. Well, that's it, because she was the consummate singing actress. She acted through the voice. So you always knew what was going on by the way she acted through the voice. One of the things that Callas had that her colleagues had such a hard time capturing as well, especially the next one on the list, is that no matter what situation she was in, no matter how high and screechy, no matter how shabby her vocal equipment might have been on the night, she enunciated the text. She knew what she was singing about, and she made sure that the vocal apparatus, beautiful or not, reflected what she was singing about. Happy was happy, sad was sad. You heard the words, and you heard the way that she spit out the words in such a way so as to give you an extra dollop of emotional truth. I remember this came home to me when I was listening to her recording of Turandot, of all things, which is not a bel canto opera. It's a late romantic effusion by Puccini. But in her big aria, in Questa Regia, where she sings about how, she decided to hate men and kill everybody and, all this stuff, nobody told a story the way she told a story. And whether you understood Italian or not, you understood she was telling you a story, and you understood the emotion behind the story. Really, it's an amazing thing. Go listen to it if you have a chance. The aria is called In Questa Regia, in this castle. Don't even bother with what the words mean. Just listen to the way she sings it. It's exceptional. And she had that gift. It was an incredible gift. And there hasn't ever been a singing actress really to match her. And so when she tackled the bel canto repertoire, the repertoire that was supposed to be, just silliness for high Tweedy sopranos, and gave it that treatment, when she took Lucia de Lammermoor and she stabbed Edgardo, whatever his name is, to death, and shows up in the bloody dress and all of that stuff. I mean, exactly what was going on, and you believed it. And that's the point. That's the greatness. The other one, of course, who has to be on the list is Joan Sutherland. Now, Sutherland, many people consider to be the anti-Callas, which is really not true. It's really not true. Emotionally, she operated at a lower temperature. She just did. But she had a very different voice. She had a voice that was enormous and incredibly agile at the same time. And she could dominate and ride the orchestra in a way that Callas never could. Callas supposedly heard her and said, she's set the cause of music back 4,000 years and everything I stood for. But Sutherland was not a Tweedy, brainless soprano at all. She was an extraordinarily intelligent singer who worked her butt off to deliver a combination of, emotional investment and technical perfection, which was unique to her. And so she was absolutely extraordinary in her own way. And she sang the same repertoire, a lot of the same repertoire anyway, that Callas sang, and she sang it just as well. And what's interesting is if you listen to Sutherland do In Questa Regia from Turandot, you also hear the story. And her enunciation is quite good. She had a period where it sounded like she never met a consonant she could tolerate, but she got through it. She really did. And after that, she was fine. And so there is a different level of engagement, perhaps, than Callas had. Maybe not that life and death sense of struggle, but it's still incredibly beautiful and incredibly moving. And being moved is what you want. You want movitude. Absolutely. And after Sutherland, Beverly Sills. Now, Beverly Sills was almost a combination of Callas and Sutherland. She started out as one of those Tweedy little soprano things. She was Philip Gossett, the great Rossini scholar, detested Sills because her teacher was one of those Tweedy soprano things, and Sills wasn't interested in his critical editions of anything, and she wasn't. She wasn't. But she also was a very, very smart singer. And she did the three queens, the Donizetti queens that are so amazing. And, Maria Stuarda and Anne Boleyn and, whatever else they are. I, never remember them all. But the fact is she had something of Callas's intelligence and Sutherland's technique. Her voice also her prime didn't last long. She wore her voice out as Callas did. Singing these extraordinarily difficult roles, because great bel canto singing is hard. It's really tough. It's as hard as anything Wagner did. Wagner, one of the operas Wagner admired the most was Bellini's Norma, which all of these people, most of these people sang, not one, but, one of them didn't. And, they felt that, because it's one of those lung-busting roles where the soprano heroine Norma has to do everything. There isn't an emotion that you can have that she doesn't have to populate at one point or another in that opera. And Wagner was aghast with admiration about what Bellini could simply do with the voice. So anyway, Sills is definitely one of the great greats. Her discography is somewhat more limited, but thank God there's enough of it to show us just how splendidly spontaneous and emotionally true she could be. So after Beverly Sills, there's also Montserrat Caballé. Now, Caballé, who had a reputation for canceling more performances than she actually sang, was known as a bel cantist. She also did an amazing Strauss Salome. I mean, she had a fabulous, fabulous voice. But she was famous for having a voice of extraordinary beauty and suppleness. And it's funny when I listen to Caballé now, after all these years, and I met her a couple of times too. She's a lovely person. You get this sense. You get this sense that she just vanishes into the music. I don't really think of her almost, in terms of having an overriding, domineering personality the way Callas and even Sutherland did. You just hear this unbelievable, beautiful, floating, wall of sound comes, roaring out there. And it's absolutely exquisite and incredibly lovely. And when it's over, you're sort of like, you wake up from as if in a dream going, oh, wow, that was pretty. That was beautiful. I mean, she did all kinds of nifty operas that other people weren't willing to do. Like Lucrezia Borgia, for example. I think that was one of them, if I'm not mistaken. And she really had the voice. She had the bell in Bel Canto. She had the canto too. But no, she was amazing. She had terrible stage fright. She was a large woman. She had a lot of issues about her physical size, and she was very, very, very timid. But her singing wasn't timid. That's what's so remarkable about her. Really, she was wonderful. Anyway, and last but not least, Marilyn Horne. Now, we talked about this a little bit, or we're going to talk about this a little bit. I don't know, depending on when this video runs, we're going to talk about this a little bit because we have a Marilyn Horne bit coming up in random reviews from the Overflow Room. But Marilyn Horne is a singer of a voice type that is a throwback, really a throwback to the golden age of bel canto singing, to Maria Malibran and Rossini's own wife, Isabella Colbran. They were mezzo-sopranos. That's what we would have called them today, mezzo-sopranos. But that didn't exist in those days. In those days, you were just a soprano, and either you had a higher range or you didn't have a higher range. But it was all the soprano territory. And that's what Marilyn Horne is. Technically, she's a mezzo, but she has a high extension. She could hit the high notes without any problem. She had the technique, possibly the greatest technique of any singer of the 20th century. Just extraordinary, astounding technique. She revived Rossini. Interesting Rossini operas, including Rossini's serious operas like Tancredi. She revived Baroque opera as well, but she was a singer in the mold of the great singers of bel canto. She sang Adalgisa opposite Norma, Joan Sutherland's Norma, and they were a pair. They did all kinds of things. She was just an amazing force of nature, Marilyn Horne. She's still with us, thank God, but she's not singing anymore, obviously. But a voice of extraordinary flexibility and control. And she used that control to inhabit a whole class of roles that no one else could do. I mean, no one else could do as well. It really is just an amazing thing to listen to her sing one of the great roles. She did the trouser roles, that is the male soprano roles. Tancredi, for example, was one of them. Castrato roles in Baroque opera. She revived all of that repertoire. She was a one-man musical revival. and just an exceptional, exceptional singer for music of this period. And she also made us take it seriously, as much as for her technical precision and accuracy as for her expressive truth, because the two are inseparable. The expression comes from the technical excellence. And you hear that very, very clearly in Marilyn Horne. So those are my 5 greatest bel canto sopranos. You may have some as well. I'd be very curious for you to share with the universe your choices. Limit is 5. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.